Welcome, everyone. Bienvenue tout le monde. Bienvenidos a todos, todas y todas. It's a great pleasure to be with you here today on day 2 of the New World 2021 Digital LGBT Plus Global Business Summit, brought to you by Canada's LGBT Plus Chamber, the Canadian Gay and Lesbian Chamber of Commerce. My name is Randy Boissonneau, and it is my great honor to serve as your moderator today. Before we get into introductions, just let me say that I acknowledge and respect the land recognition that was done in the video. And I'm actually in Edmonton, in Alberta, and I come from Treaty 6 territory, which is the territory of the Plains and Woodland Cree, the Saulteaux, the Nakota Sioux, and the Métis peoples. And if my great-grandmother, full-blooded Cree woman, Lucy Brenize, were here, she might say something like, Mio Tatakuan Tawau, which is Cree for guests. You're welcome. There's room here. So welcome, everyone. And let me get started by saying that we have a fabulous lineup of panelists today, and I'm going to ask each of them in turn to introduce themselves. But before I do that, let me share with you who we have today. We have Abby Sugar from Playouts Apparel. We have Kanish Chowdhury from the Samavesh Chamber of Commerce. And we have Gareth Buchanan from Out Scotland. So in that order, I'm going to ask each of you to take a minute to introduce your fabulous selves, and then we're going to get into some questions to get to know you a little bit better. Abby, you're up.
Thanks so much, Randy. It's really wonderful to be here. Thank you to the CGLCC for having me. I am Abby Sugar, and I am the founder and CEO of Playouts Apparel, which is a gender equal omnichannel streetwear and underwear brand. So we do not have men's or women's sections of our site, but we encourage everyone to shop by style and not by gender. And we are a member of the US NGLCC, and so really happy to be here at this global summit.
Very great. Very great to have you with us here, and we're going to get into some of your challenges, but also your triumphs as a CEO. Kanish, tell us about you.
Thanks, Randy. Hi, everyone. My name is Kanish Chowdhury. Glad to be on the panel. This is my second online virtual summit with CGLCC. I loved it last time. I'm loving it now. Yesterday was amazing. Thank you for having me here. So I'm the co-founder of Samavesh Chamber of Commerce. Samavesh implies inclusion in Sanskrit. And we do have 9 other co-founders and advisory board members. We all got together last year and we created this chamber. We saw that a lot of solid work has been done on the social side of it, inclusion of the queer individuals, LGBTIQ plus individuals for the country, resulting in the decriminalization of homosexuality and then the trans bill. But not much has been done from the economic inclusion perspective. So we thought that as members of the corporate fraternity, we should be able to get together and drive a solution around it. And glad to be here. Thank you for having me.
Thanks very much, Kanish. Gareth, on a very sunny day in Scotland, over to you.
Thanks, Randy. So my name is Gareth Buchanan. I'm Director of Diversity and Inclusion at Out Britain and Out Scotland. We are the UK's newest and first LGBT Chamber of Commerce. We launched last week, so we are very much in our early days in terms of getting started. Thanks, Kanishka, for the round of applause there. Yes, very much in our early days. We are a global affiliate of the US LGBT Chamber of Commerce and the Canadian LGBT Chamber of Commerce. And really, we're getting started in terms of bringing on a number of corporate sponsors, looking to really support the LGBT business community here in the UK. For those of you who don't know the UK market particularly well, we have a fairly healthy legislative environment, particularly in terms of employment rights. But the small business market in particular is one that probably hasn't been supported as well as it could have been over the past few years. So it's an area that we're very keen to support going forward, and the Chamber is one way that we're going to do that. So really excited about getting involved in this week's festivities and really enjoying it so far. So thanks, Randy.
Good, appreciate it. And we'll get into some of what the highs and lows have been as you've set up a new chamber, Gareth, as we get into the event today. And look, first there were 4 and then there were 5. Es un gran honor de decir hola a mi amigo Felipe Cardenas de la Cámara de Comerciantes LGBTI en Colombia. Felipe, qué placer verte. Just give us a quick minute about yourself, and then we're going to get into some questions. So tell us about yourself, my friend.
Thank you, Randy, for the introduction. Full in Spanish. Hello to everybody. My name is Felipe Quevedo. I am the president of the Colombian LGBT Chamber of Commerce. I am not in Colombia right now. I'm in the US because I have always part-time between Florida and Bogota. So in this opportunity, I will be speaking to you from Florida. Something interesting about me that probably people would like to hear is that finally, after almost 10 years of running the chamber in Colombia, I compile a lot of stories that finally are putting together in a book that is coming soon. So, and hopefully the book is going to be able or available in Spanish, English, and Portuguese. So it's a long project and it's called Discrimination Goes Against Businesses, or more or less like that, translating from Spanish. And I'm really excited to be able to introduce that very soon to all the audiences from all the chambers of commerce. And you can find more a little bit about me and about the Colombian Chamber. I can post this on the chat later on, but it's a pleasure to be here. And thank you again for inviting me, Randy, and the Canadian Chamber.
Well, muchísimas gracias, Felipe. It's a great pleasure to be here. Just 30 seconds on my connection to the CGLCC. It was in the middle of the pandemic that I got certified as a CGLCC-owned business, an LGBT business. So if you want to do something post-pandemic, go join your supplier diversity group. CGLCC was great. It was all done seamlessly. And I had been in business before politics. And for those of you on the event that I haven't met, I was a member of parliament in Canada for 4 years from the West, serving in the national parliament. And I served as Justin Trudeau's special advisor on LGBTQ2 issues. And so I saw a lot of the social justice issues, the human rights issues, the business issues. But it was our pleasure with the CGLCC to lead Canada's first LGBTQ2 trade mission, Abby, to the United States, to the NGLCC, the National Gay and Lesbian Chamber of Commerce Summit in 2018 in Philadelphia. And I just want to share with you this quick anecdote, and then I'm going to get to the short snappers. I went with a trade minister. It was our international trade minister, Jim Carr. He's still in the government in Canada. He's now the minister for the prairies. And I think he was surprised at the scope of the NGLCC event and what we're able to do as chambers. And when we were in the Marriott ballroom and there's all these people and we got into the first interview and the interviewer said to Minister, why did you come to an LGBTQ2 plus event? You could have stayed home and sent someone else. And he said, I have 2 missions. And my mission first is to decide where Canadians get to trade. And my second mission is to diversify and include all Canadians to trade. And I thought that was a beautiful metaphor, that there are people in our world that don't yet have that opportunity to be able to trade, and you are all making space for people. So I will say that thank you to CGLCC and your group, Felipe. I was able, through my company, to attend a trade mission to Colombia, which has been very interesting. And just last week, I did a diversity and inclusion talk to the Universidad de Santo Tomás Misión in Medellin, Colombia, on diversity and inclusion. So the work is happening. So now, let's get to some get to know you questions, and hopefully we get Felipe's video back, if not his audio. So, Abby, for you, eggs or what do you say, smoked salmon and bagel for breakfast?
Oh, well, I'm a New Yorker, so I'm going to go with smoked salmon on a bagel. Absolutely.
Okay, so Ball Game or Coney Island?
Coney Island.
Ooh, ice cream,
yeah.
Ice cream or cake?
That is a difficult question. I'll go with cake.
Jazz or classical?
Classical.
Ooh, okay, we're going to come back to you. Gareth, ale or wine?
Wine.
The moors or the beach?
The beach.
Oh, the beach. Okay,
The beach.
and are you a sunset person or a sunrise person?
Sunset. Yeah.
Oh, sunset. Let's go hard rock or hip hop?
Hip hop.
Okay, and
Oh, actually, both. both.
Actually,
Yeah.
both.
Yeah.
Okay, and where will you go the first time you can travel again?
Ooh. Somewhere sunny. Anywhere sunny. Despite complaining about being too hot today in Scotland, we haven't had enough of it, so anywhere sunny.
Okay, Conesh, morning, noon, or afternoon, your best time of the day?
Noon. At least I'm awake that time.
Okay, are you going to take a nap or are you going to have a cup of coffee or a really nice chai?
Chai. Masala chai.
And is it tandoori, or are you gonna have like something like super like madras, like super spicy? What's your best flavor?
No, tandoori is best.
Tandoori is the best.
5 years before it might have been masala, but not now.
And vegetarian or meat dish?
Meat, always.
Meat. Okay, now I'm going goat, chicken, or beef?
That's a tough one.
Mm.
Chicken.
Okay, chicken. Okay, where are you going to travel first when you get to travel next?
Bhutan. There is this very nice, quaint country and between India and China.
Yeah.
On the foothills of the Himalayas. Very beautiful. I would love to travel there again.
So then you've answered my question, beach or hike. You're going for a hike.
I'm going for a hike. Yes.
Okay, Felipe, I have to
Yes.
ask, a hike or a beach for you?
Oh, beach, always.
Mojito or something fruity?
Fruity with tequila.
Fruity with tequila. Okay, mate or cafe?
Lindo, I'm Colombian. Of course, coffee.
I had to see if the Argentines might win out, but no, Colombia, siempre Colombia. Okay, now I'm going to ask you all, boxers or briefs? Es un chiste.
Can we ask that here?
It's
Are
a
we
great
live?
question. I
Abby-
talk about underwear all the time.
Yes, well, I own an underwear business here with my husband in Florida. So brief.
You gotta talk, Felipe.
See? You got to talk about these
Yes,
things.
please, Abby.
Yeah, you two have to talk. Okay, Felipe, where are you going to travel? Then I'm going to ask Abby, then I'll ask you some serious questions now that we've warmed up the crowd.
Actually, it's already planned. Next Tuesday, I'm going to Mexico City.
Que suerte. I haven't been since 97. I can't wait to go again. So good for you. Send me photos, please.
Amazing.
Okay, Abby, where are you going to go when you can, when you get some time and you're able to travel again?
Well, first work trip is going to be to Puerto Vallarta because my COO is based down there. So really excited about that. First personal trip is I'm trying to get back to Australia. It was one of the best trips I took a couple years ago and would love to be back there.
Okay, good. So as our friends can see, we're already off script. We're just having fun now, but we're ahead of time. So we've got time, but I want some short, snappy answers to these questions so we can get into some of the things that weren't on the original script. So Gareth, I'm going to start with you. You recently launched the Chamber. Congratulations. Can you tell us a little bit about, so why start a chamber in Scotland, and what have you been doing primarily? What was the number one driver, and what is the primary needs that you've been serving for LGBTQ plus entrepreneurs in Scotland?
So number one driver was our founder is an American who moved to Scotland, and he was chair of the chamber in Connecticut, the LGBT Chamber in Connecticut. When he moved to Scotland, he found that actually, whilst going back to the point I made earlier, we had quite a good legislative process in terms of supporting employees, there wasn't much for small businesses, and really very little in terms of connecting LGBT businesses to each other and to bigger organizations who wanted to work with LGBT businesses. So there was a real gap in the market there to do something. With Matt's connections to the NGLCC and the CGLCC and the global affiliates, it felt like there was just a real opportunity there to bring something in. And the recognition and I guess the reception we've had already from organizations, both of big and large and LGBT and allies, has been fantastic and really demonstrates that opportunity is appreciated.
And you're living, sorry, keep going.
Yeah, so really just now it's really just about getting started and finding the opportunities to connect them, and you know, looking at how we're having our conversation today. Obviously a lot of that has to be done online just now because COVID has kind of thrown a spanner in the works in terms of us being able to meet up, but in some respects from a geographical perspective that's actually made things a little bit easier because we couldn't really approach the UK as a whole in terms of getting people together, whereas online we can pretty much meet across the geographic area and pull people from London, from Scotland, from wherever, and start having those conversations. So in a sense, it's actually worked in our favor being able to do that.
Understood. I'm going to come back to you in a minute on the impact of lockdowns. Abby, you're a fierce feminist, female leader, founder, unapologetically queer, and you're raising money, and your story is inspiring. So can you tell us a little bit about Playouts' history and what it's been like for a business owner in this time and in this space?
Yeah, you know, there's so many threads here. And just when Gareth and you were just talking, talking about the opportunities for connecting LGBTQ plus businesses and diversity in the supply chain. And the immediate thing that I thought of was, in order to participate in something like the NGLCC or the CGLCC or Out Scotland, the founder or the small business owner has to be out, has to publicly identify. So as a queer female founder in the startup landscape, if you will, when you look at the statistics, and we have statistics that only, 2.3% of venture capital funding goes to female founders. We don't even have those numbers for LGBTQ plus startups. And there's a great organization in the US called Start Out. And the barrier to this is that LGBT founders might not feel comfortable, might not feel empowered to publicly identify as out. So the latest, data that they have is looking at trillions of dollars of venture funding over the past 10 years. Their best guess is less than 1% is going to LGBTQ plus founders. So it's definitely, you definitely feel that underrepresented founder. I feel that underrepresented founder thing, but I've found so many opportunities and so much support with the NGLCC and I love these global connections that we're making here. The NGLCC did a really great job pivoting digitally and hosting pitch competitions. And when I pitch as a startup, when I'm pitching to investors, when I'm raising money, that's a very specific thing. But I think all small businesses, especially when we're talking about supply chain, when we're talking about corporations needing diverse suppliers, governments being able to hire diverse suppliers, you need to know how to pitch your business. So it's an amazing resource. I'm a big fan, so I love talking about the NGLCC.
Well, good. Kanish, I think half of our viewers went and looked at Bhutan in Google to see what you were talking about, to see where we could actually go do some hiking. But you have great experience from supplier diversity and diversity and inclusion spaces in your work. And now you're at the Chamber. So for suppliers from any country looking to expand internationally, what's your advice to them from your previous life?
They have to understand of course, they'll be doing the SWOT and they'll be doing the regular analysis, but also they should be looking at what are the different support systems that exist in those different geographies, because market access in developing countries like India can be misleading by what we found on Google, by what we find on Google versus what it really is. So it's always good to have a conversation with the chamber, or with an entity or with a corporate entity whom they want to do business with, and try to understand what all kind of benefits would they derive, and what kind of market opportunities can they actually look to explore. Sometimes what looks like from the outside is not the same. So they have to understand the challenges. It is that country's chamber or that country's resource groups that will be able to provide more value to them. So that is my advice.
That's really good advice. And before I let you go, you mentioned something when we were having a chat before the panel about your eyes were open when you saw what was happening with micro businesses and rural businesses as people were fleeing COVID. What was your aha moment there with kind of supports that you could provide to those businesses?
So yes, thanks, Randy, for bringing that up. In India, the gig workers are a big chunk who are working in the non-formal sector. If you take a look at the LGBT people in India, the number is approximately 180 million. Out of that, approximately 43 million are racial minorities. Now, only 11 to 13 million people are the active, regular workforce that works in a full-time employment. The rest of them are gig workers. So, and these are the people who will be working in factories, they'll be working in homes, etc. Hawkers selling vegetables. Now, COVID hit them real hard. So they had to leave these metropolitan cities where they went to make a living, either alone or with their families, and they had to get back to their own villages or cities in the hinterlands. Now, when that happened, they had not much scope of livelihood. They had to actually rediscover the entire wheel around it. And that hit them hard. So I come from a very small place in India, approximately 500 miles from New Delhi. It's called Lucknow. And I saw it happening here, and I saw smaller organizations stepping up and helping them out in setting up their businesses. And like Samavesh, from Samavesh side, now we are incubating one of those organizations, and we look forward to incubating more such organizations across the country. Identify, incubate, provide those set of resources so that they are the ones who are able to enable them, because they're local. They know the local constraints, they know the local opportunities. They'll be able to actually weave around that solution much faster than an organization on a national level. So the idea is about collaboration and providing those resources to them.
So it's almost like a hub and spoke model, right? Or where you provide the experience to help get to that micro level that you might not be able to get to on your own as a chamber, but by incubating a group locally, it can then help other businesses, micro businesses, to thrive. And so it's a challenge and an opportunity for LGBT plus chambers around the world. Felipe, you said you wanted some real conversation. So we know your organization's fabulous. We know it's been running for 10 years. We know you're going to write a book, okay? We know this, and we know you're awesome. Now, the question is, how can chambers like yours and all of these here help to make sure there's a real recovery for the people who are hurting the most? So how to make sure that the women and the afrodescendientes and la gente trans y las lesbianas y la gente pobre pueden salir de esta mierda de pandemia and actually, you know, have a real life at the end. Sorry for that, CGLCC, but that was what I thought in my brain. We need your microphone on, my friend.
I was saying that I won't translate the bad words you just say in Spanish, but what I can say, and that I'm pretty sure there is bilingual audience watching us, but what I can say on your words and your question, Randy, is that just in another session with this event the Canadian Chamber is doing, I was sharing the same comment, is the fact that if finally we are walking towards a global economic recovery after the pandemic, there is not a single corporations or a single business that can afford leaving people outside the picture to recover faster and soon enough. We cannot afford the fact of discriminate anybody by any means if we want to succeed in the velocity we need to have to recover economically as a planet, literally, because all the economies are impacted. And the ones that are recovering faster, and the economists that are watching us might understand, remember that, like this country, for example, that I care deeply also to, that is the US, is recovering dramatically fast by debt. So we don't know the implications of that in the near future. And we don't know if this bet, like in the casino, we are doing is actually going to work in the following years. So in that sense, we have in front of us, Randy, an amazing opportunity to once and for all eradicate discrimination from the workplace, to start being actually truly inclusive, not from the speech, not from putting the rainbows in June, but actually the whole year in every single activity, to walk the talk with our vendors, our suppliers, our distributors, our talent, and especially our customers. This is probably one of the best opportunities we have to put all those speeches and all those theories of DEI, diversity, equality, and inclusion, into practice and actually walk the talk.
Okay, good. We're going to pause there because, Gareth, I was in the United Kingdom for 9 months with my partner, David, who's doing his master's in molecular biology at Queen's. And I was following a lot of what the UK government was doing, and it's a conservative government, and you wouldn't expect it to have invested as heavily as it did. A little bit, counter theory, but they did. And I watched the elections in Scotland with interest as well. So what's the political climate like to come out of COVID and to make sure that it's, and I'm not going to ask Abby the question directly about she-covery and a she session, but how do we make sure that everybody in Scotland has an equitable and equal chance of the recovery? And what do you see to that, Gareth?
I mean, it's a really interesting place, the UK, just now, because we have quite a different, I guess, political views north and south of the border. So I would say the English and Scottish political outlook is quite different in terms of probably where we're headed. The UK, England is largely conservative voters, and if we look at how the UK voted, Scotland did not vote for conservative at all. So we do probably see some separation at some point in the future potentially, and I think that's where most of Scotland sees itself going, which is actually why we created two brands when we set up our organisation. So we have Out Britain, which looks after England, Wales and Northern Ireland, and then Out Scotland that solely looks after Scotland. And really that's in anticipation of that, because I think the two countries are both politically and culturally quite different, and we've seen that kind of change. Now, that's not to say that Wales and Northern Ireland aren't, I think, probably much in line with Scotland in that sense as well, but I guess where they're situated and there are other factors built into that, I suppose, in terms of how they vote. So yeah, it's a really interesting place just now. LGBT rights are at the forefront of some of those discussions, particularly trans rights just now. Have been effectively, I guess, weaponized by some parts of politics. Our conservative leaders are particularly interesting because actually in terms of pushing some LGBT rights forward over the past sort of 10 years that they've been in power, we've seen a real rolling back of some of those rights over the past couple of years. So various promises have been made around things like trans rights in particular, and then no progress has been made over the past couple of years, and we're opening things up to discussion now that really don't need to be discussed. So it's a real interesting time, and I think a lot of those discussions are really driving that separation between the two countries actually. Where we have quite a strong female leader in Scotland who seems to grasp a lot of those issues, and identity is a big part of driving the politics in Scotland just now, and respecting that doesn't seem to fly as well in England, but we have to be very respectful of that in terms of the conversations that we're having with people across the UK. So yeah, it's an interesting time, but those conversations are going to continue. Race is a big topic just now, as it is across many parts of the world, and a very divisive one. Our media is playing a big role in pushing that, and I think there's a lot of misunderstanding about what people are standing up for and against just now. So it's a difficult time to do what we do, because a lot of, in terms of launching Out Scotland and Out Britain, a lot of the critique we deal with are arguments you can't really have discussions on, because actually, you know, sometimes the challenges that you face aren't really even worth standing up to, because they're so based in just non-fact, and actually aren't based in any real reality. So it can be an interesting time, but actually that's what we're paid to do, and those are the conversations we have to have. So we do it.
Well, and it's interesting because for those of you who follow free trade agreements, and a lot of the people that are watching right now will be, you know, very interested to know, where the EU lines are drawn, where the UK lines are drawn, and the fact that the UK is now going to be looking for trade agreements around the world post-Brexit is important for all of us to know, those of us who want to trade. It also does speak to an opportunity. Like if somebody's looking to set up in the UK, maybe they set up in Edinburgh versus, in a different part of England, based on what we're hearing from you. I did note that the UK has appointed a special envoy on LGBTQ plus issues, Lord Nick Herbert. Full transparency, Nick and I work together in the Global Equality Caucus. But Abby, I think you'll see one coming up from the Biden administration, a special envoy at some point. But a question for you: how do you raise money in this kind of a time? And how can business owners make sure that it's an equitable and full recovery? And then I'm going to get to some themes that each of you think can help our businesses coming out of the pandemic.
Yeah, and I think raising money and who you're raising money for goes a little bit to what the conversation that was just happening, in terms of there's a lot of, hopefully, I'm optimistic, forward progress in inclusion and diversity. And I'm talking, gender, race, sexual orientation, all of the above. And so hopefully these baseless arguments that we're getting out of fear, out of reactionary arguments, the point is you have to lead your business, you have to invest in other business based on your values. So when I'm going out and I'm raising money from investors, it's really important for me to be seeking out values aligned investors. And there's a lot, depending on what area you're looking at or what type of industry you're in, there's a lot of opportunity. There's a lot of money out there. But if you're talking to somebody who, doesn't share your values, then you don't want to be, you can't these days be forced into behaving in a certain way or aligning your company as a small business owner or as an investor investing in a business with something that you don't believe in. And because if you're especially working with the LGBTQ plus community, you need to be inclusive and authentically aware of what the struggles that we face and what we're focused on, sort of uplifting our whole community and what we're focused on building for. In terms of the recovery, you know, something that I appreciate you not targeting me specifically as the lone female on this panel, but you know, there's something that I think doesn't get talked about so much is families in the LGBTQ plus community. I think it's being talked about more because in the past 10 or 15 years, laws have changed, right? Like gay marriage, et cetera. But in terms of the recovery, that's also a big thing, because if you look at women business owners, if you look at women in the workforce, they get paid less than men. And then you have two women in a relationship who are making less money. And especially in the US, without the, you know, social support, childcare, et cetera, one woman then has to be a stay-at-home mom. I mean, you're just looking at being hit after hit after hit. So I think that all of us on this panel, especially talking about uplifting the lowest common denominator, right? Maybe lowest common denominator is the wrong word, but everyone, right? We need to really support everyone, all diversities, and especially our Black and people of color in the US and trans Black and people of color in our community. It's the most important thing.
That's very good. Felipe, I'm going to go to you next. I just want to maybe give a glimmer of hope to people who are tuning in from Canada. The pandemic really showed us how much we rely on women, how much we rely on mothers, how much we rely on front line workers, and what happens when you have to have kids at home and all of a sudden a lot of the structures that we just assumed would continue to work break down. But Quebec had shown us what it was like to have $5 a day daycare. And before they put that in place, it was about, I want to say 69% of women were in the workforce, and it was about 78% in Ontario. And then after Quebec did that, it shot up to over 80% women in the workforce or women in post-secondary. And it actually was so successful that it allowed Quebec to be able to straighten up its finances. And now the federal government is actually spending $30 billion over the next 8 years to put in $10 a day childcare across the country. And we're assuming and hoping, Abby, to your point, that it'll have that kind of transformational, but that unleashing of people and letting them do what they want to do, having a family, but also being able to be in the workforce. So Felipe, in your 10 years of great experience, how have you partnered with other supplier diversity, like the women organizations and afrodescendientes and las personas con capacidades diferentes? Like, how are the different supplier diversity groups able to work with the LGBT group so that we're stronger in numbers?
Yes, and I really like this question, Randy, for the following concept, and it's the fact that a lot of LGBT or sexually diverse organizations ended up being gay men driven. And then I was always putting this topic on the agenda of my board, and I was telling you, enough with the white men leading LGBT organizations, enough with only men activities. We need to walk the talk. And in order to make this into practice, there is a concept that in the Colombian Chamber is helping us a lot to walk that talk, and is intersectionality.
Yes, good.
Sexual diversity does not come in a formula of white cisgender people, men or women. No, it's actually pretty way more diverse. And in that sense, in Colombia, for example, we are geographically located in a region with Caribbean and Pacific Ocean. We have a lot of Afro-descendant people that happen to be LGBT. We are the closest neighbors of Venezuela. We have almost 3 million living in our country right now. So we do have migratory challenges regarding people that is living in our territory. And X, Y, and Z. So what we have been doing is first putting ourselves a goal that we wanted to pursue gender parity in our events. That was a very simple step. And is that we wanted, if we are going to have 100 people in a room for the events of the Colombian Chamber, and now when we can come back to do events physically, at least we need to pursue that men and women come. The easy thing to say is that we always invite them and they then show up. It's not enough. We need to go and get them. We need to be proactive on that. The second thing, Pursuing that gender parity, partnering with key organizations, for example, regarding LGBT women that happen to be sexually diverse. There are amazing organizations. We Connect International, for example, that they certified women-owned businesses, the certification women-owned. We partner with them in Colombia. We extend the invitation to all of their audiences to come to our event. And the second thing, on the social line of associations and organizations, we start partnering with associations of migrants, of Afro-descendant people in our country, of people that, in the case of Colombia, people that was displaced by the armed conflict of the country. That was also a very particular issue. Things like that. And we identified that is a great source, first for talent, that you can connect small businesses and actually corporations to promote employment opportunities, but also for entrepreneurship opportunities that we can activate and help these people to get organized, partner with other entities, and provide entrepreneurial creation of businesses opportunities for them. And in those two ways, if we, for example, as a Chamber of Commerce, offer access to formal employment opportunities or provide a platform for people to learn and to develop businesses around their ideas, that's more than enough of a contribution that you can do as a Chamber of Commerce.
Perfecto. That's very well said. I'm going to go to Kanish, then Abby, then Gareth. One trend and one wish, because we're down to 7 minutes. I'm going to take one of those minutes to wrap up. So Kanish, one trend that you're seeing that can help our businesses thrive, and one wish that you have for LGBT businesses in your region.
The trend that I'm seeing is primarily, to be honest, hello, can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you. What was the trend?
It's collaboration, it's collaborating, localizing, yet standardizing those best practices. Had I not been introduced to the concept of supplier diversity by Deborah Quaid, my mentor in Kellogg, when I was working as a category manager, I wouldn't have known it existed.
Sure.
So, and then the collaboration between NGLCC, CGLCC, and our other partners who have helped us in framing the chamber together. That's a very powerful model. If we have certain best practices that we would like to share, and we then make that effect magnify. So by involving others, by sharing it with others. And my grandfather used to say that sharing is contagious. So once you have something and you're sharing it with somebody else, they will share it with somebody else if it helps them. And it has definitely helped us. And so we are very much motivated to pass it on.
Very good. Thank you very much. Abby.
So one trend that I'm seeing that I love is actually consumers and people all across the world shopping their values and supporting each other. So like if I'm going and I'm looking for a flower supplier event that I'm doing, I can go to the CGLCC or the NGLCC or, Kanish and or Out Scotland, right? Or Felipe and say, who should I source from? We can source from within our community. And we can also shop as consumers from queer-owned brands, right? So that's really exciting to me. And my wish for businesses in this region is that corporations are supporting LGBTQ plus individuals year-round. And so it's not just rainbow washing during Pride Month, which we all know is a thing. But I always say, I'm super, super queer. I have a super queer company and we're super queer 365 days a year. So, authentic connection and supporting us as a champion year round and not just in June.
Oh, I'm glad you said it, because that's my hook, is that I love allies, but we need champions now, not just allies. An ally is somebody who has our backs when we're in the room. A champion is someone who has our backs when we're not. And it's time for more champions. And I love what you just said there. I mean, if you think allyship is sipping sangria at a Pride, then you've got some studying to do. So I heard that on a podcast the other day and I just about fell out of my chair. So it's very good. Gareth, a trend and a wish, and then Felipe, and then I think we got to wrap up, folks.
Yeah, so I'm going to go with Abby on this one. So digital revolution has enabled people to research businesses, not just in terms of LGBT, things like pay gaps, gender pay gaps, ethnicity pay gaps are all accessible information for people now. And that's how we decide who we want to work for and who we spend money with. That is the strongest trend for me. the challenge and the opportunity, again, sticking with Abby on this one, for businesses to talk about that stuff and to use that stuff to demonstrate what they're doing. Over the past week, I've seen every brand that I can think of turn Pride colors. I've not seen any of those posts talk about what they're doing. I've seen every single one share their new brand image. You know, none of them have actually talked about any of the targets that they've set in terms of how they're delivering change for their LGBT customers or their employees. Such a missed opportunity. Those organizations, you know, come and talk to us. We'll tell you how to have those conversations, how to actually market your businesses properly without being accused of just sticking a Pride sticker on everything.
It's one of the trends that we put our finger on when we chatted earlier, and it's this notion of we have to hire in our communities, and we have to hire from other supplier diverse, baskets, if you will. And to your point, Gareth, how many queer people of color are in those companies? How many trans people are on the front lines in those companies, right? And I have to say, I did see the tracking for at least Microsoft Canada and the US, and theirs is very detailed. It's to the person, it's to the unit, and they track it year over year. And if it dips, and they don't change it. So I think those are the kind of metrics that I would like to see more companies have public. Felipe, one trend, one wish, por favor.
I was in a forum recently, and they introduced me this concept of sustainable solidarity.
Ooh.
And that was resonating a lot in my head, because a lot of people is affected by COVID, but a lot of people actually did good in these tough times. So they have more. So if we belong to that privileged amount of people that at least is not in trouble, let's open our arms a little bit bigger and let's contribute. It's not always necessarily only money. Can be time, can be volunteering for something, can be connecting people. Like those things, being more cautious. And the other thing regarding that being sustainable is that I believe we are becoming as a humanity clever on how to maximize the few resources we have. To stop wasting time, money, water, energy, a lot of things. We should become a clever humanity, how to maximize the resources we have. That's the trend, and I would like to participate in that trend a lot. Good. I wish that I have, honestly, and especially for the chamber role that I have, I do wish we can get back together as soon as possible. Like the people, the events, the connections, the networking events. They're not really. That's a missing piece from my puzzle, and not being able to be in contact with people. I'm Latin, I'm emotional, I'm touchy, everything. I do miss being around with people. That's a wish.
That's true. Thank you all very much. A couple of, I'm watching the time very closely because I know Ryan's going to say that's enough. Some of the wicked problems we've seen in the last year: healthcare, sustainability, efficiency, the fact that some of our markets are coming out of lockdown, but some parts of the world still need help. And there's great opportunities for our businesses in both of those. Hiring in our community, and push to all of your governments and to all of your corporations. If you don't have a supplier diversity policy yet, do so, because it'll change your community, it'll change your country, it'll change lives. Abby, Sugar, Gareth, Buchanan, Kaneshka, Chowdhury, Felipe Cardenas, and the amazing team at CGLCC, thank you for this panel. This is Randy Boissonneau signing off for this event at the CGLCC Summit. Thank you all. See you soon.
Thank you.